What up, good people? How you doing? Let me tell you a story. Welcome to Deconstructing Christianity. I'm your host, Coach Renz, and today I will be your guide for our journey through deconstructing through the Bible. And tonight we're going to talk about a comparison between the book, the 19th chapters of Genesis versus the 19th chapter of Judge. Parental advisory, as this is some explicit content, and I look forward to us having this discussion tonight. I give about 5 minutes for people to get on, and then we get deeper into this. Then we get into the subject matter. So I just want to welcome everybody to being here. As a reminder, we are having our meetup in San Antonio. So if you look in the description of the videos on Facebook and YouTube where we broadcast, you will find a link that allows you to be able to reserve your hotel room for the Druid Riverwalk in San Antonio, meeting October 31st through November 2nd. And we're going to have a great time. Most things are completely free that we're going to be going to. You get a free breakfast, get a free supper. And most of the places that we're going to meet up are free. So we're just giving a few minutes for people to get on. Got any comments, questions, or statements that you want to get started before we get started? You're more than welcome to. But when we get started on the point, we will stick to the point. I'll go ahead and light my cigar. As we prepare ourselves for the 5-minute mark of getting this conversation going. If you missed yesterday, you missed a good conversation. So yesterday's video was great. You should have go watch that one. We talked about Moors and the whole black Moors and the whole thing. That was a great conversation that we had yesterday. So I recommend you go and watch that one. I published 3 videos. Did I do 3 or 4? I did about 4 videos today. And please continue to like and share the video. It helps grows the channel. So I greatly appreciate that. So we want to continue to grow the channel. People are getting on late today. We're starting a little bit later. Lesser numbers than we usually start by this time frame. I think the parental advisory done scared some people away. Because I ain't seen Wrath or Tim comment yet. Let me make sure the YouTube is working. Usually those two can't wait to have something to say. It's live on the YouTube. That's how old people say it. On the YouTube and the Facebook. Oh, Dust, you pipe smoke during the videos? I was at the this place called Club Humidor yesterday. This dude, he was smoking a pipe. I ain't gonna lie, that pipe was smelling good. He had a good pipe smoke. I don't know what he was smoking, but it was smelling good. Actually, I started with a pipe before I moved over to cigars. So I used to get cherry Cavendish. I don't know if you ever done this, Dust. I get cherry Cavendish, and then I would cut an apple up into 4 parts, and I would put 2 of those pieces inside the cherry Cavendish and let it sit there for like a week, and it's real good. Let that apple sit and marinate with the cherry Cavendish for a week. It's real good. My wife hates it. But one of the requirements for when I met my wife is that if you don't smoke cigars, it's not gonna work. No longer was I gonna deal with somebody who just tolerates my cigars. You gotta smoke them too. But yeah, try that cherry Cavendish and cut an apple up, 2/4 of an apple in there. Learned it from my pappy. Usually women tolerate people who don't like cigar smoke or smoke at all. Usually they're more tolerant of pipe tobacco. That's interesting. My former mother-in-law didn't mind that one because she always thought it made the house smell good, like potpourri. Hold on, my wife is aggravated by something. Hold on, y'all. You okay? Oh, girl. Make me think something. Sorry about that. So we got people working at the house, and then she gave a what the hell. So, when you got people working at the house and then your wife screams something out, you got to go check. But she was just noticing all the plastic that's up in the bedroom, and she can't get in there good. All right, all right. So, how many of you guys have read Genesis 19 and Judges 19? In your process of deconstructing, or just your process of being a Christian or reading the Bible, how many of you have read Genesis 19 and Judges 19? We got low numbers on the show tonight. So we're going to do a comparison, and we're going to talk about those two stories. And these two stories help me deconstruct from the Bible tremendously. Just reading these two stories. So Genesis 19 and Judges 19. How many? I've done videos about both these verses. All right. So I need a haircut. I've done videos about both these verses. So how many? So I want. So some of you should be familiar with these two verses. Macy says she's read all the books, but it's been a while ago. Now, some of you may have read Genesis 19, but just don't remember. Genesis 19 is the Sodom and Gomorrah story. It's the Lot story. So I'm sure that the majority of you guys have remembered the Lot story. You've read the Lot story, if you read the Bible at all. Right? Judges, most people haven't read the Judges story. So everybody around you, Christian, try to follow. Let's see. Say read all of, but when I read the verses where God ordered the killing of infants, you was out. I understand. So you would have now if you was reading the Bible from front to back, you'd have got to that. You'd have got to Genesis 19 before you got to the Exodus story when he kills the infants. So lots of murder and rape and pillage. Exactly, Mason. So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna go over both stories, and we're gonna see how the information changes. What gave me the idea to talk about these two, and the theme of me talking about these two is the fact that, do you guys remember playing that telephone game when you was a kid? Or, when you did it in school, where the teacher or whomever would tell somebody one thing and then see how it traveled around the room and see if the story comes back and it's the same story, right? Almost every history teacher that I've ever dealt with has done this. Like, I don't know why all of them felt like they all needed to do it for every grade. But almost every history teacher, they tell the first student, Mary got on a train in Paris at 9 a.m. and arrived in London at 7 p.m. and was met by her husband, Todd. That'd be how the story is told for the first person. By the time the story gets all the way around, so many aspects of the story have changed. Sometimes Mary didn't get married. She got on the train, but then all of a sudden she went from getting on a train to getting on a plane. The message always changed. The times always change. Who she met changes. All kinds of things always change. Now, we can see So I did a video earlier today where I showed how within the first in the Genesis story, according to this story, Adam was told by this God that in the day that he eat from the tree of knowledge of good and evil, he will die. The Bible doesn't indicate who told Eve. Most assume that she was told by Adam. But when Eve is talking to the serpent by the tree, she tells the serpent, not only if we eat from the tree of knowledge of good and evil, that we will die, but also if we touch it, we will die. So it's like she added her own extra in there, right? I had how quick I had threw it down. I had dropped it, so it's okay. But she had added her own thing, her own addition to it. So what and if that's what's happened between the first two people, right there telling this story, then it leaves a lot to be desired as far as the validity of the story. Now, we know that the story is make believe. We know that, but what we do know is the story might have been being told as early as the 1300s BCE. We know it wasn't written down until around 800 BCE. 800 to 700 BCE is when it's first written down. Now, after it's written down, it goes through some edits and everything. It goes through some edits. For the next 700 to 800 years, it goes through a whole bunch of edits. And then after it goes through all those edits, the Christians get it. And of course, the Christians are trying to validate this. So all these stories are going through this long telephone game that you played in history class, right? Going through all these different people over hundreds of years, thousands of years go by, and you got all this story being told. So that made me think about the fact of not only how they kept retelling the story, and you would have no idea as to whether or not anything that a person is reading in the Bible is the original. There's no way that no one with half a sense of a brain could say and substantiate that what they're reading in the Bible is the original, because there are no original texts. There's only the oldest of this, the oldest of that, or a little scrap that they found here, or a little scrap that they found there. I didn't even think about that. But so they got these little scraps that they'll hold on to, and they'll say, oh, well, this is proof that the Bible today is true. But like this little scrap is called P52. I believe P52 is either Mark or John. I can't remember exactly which one it is, but I think it's Mark. And so this little scrap just has a little bit of information, just enough information to say that they had some scroll that has some of the same things that you see in the book of Mark. But this doesn't validate that everything that you have in the book of Mark right now is true. Right? So we don't know. But it got me thinking about how even these people, they hear a story, but then over time the story changes, and then they wrote, and all they did was write the same story, but added some more wrinkles to it, change it up, change the story. You say popping in and out. Is everything fine for everybody else on Facebook? Are we having a problem on Facebook? So my point of this story of this Genesis story and this Judges story is that what we actually have here is a Genesis story retold, but added some twists and turns to teach, because it's being written hundreds of years after the Genesis story was told. Oh, Jay, you in Hawaii? Aloha. Ooh, my brother. Oh, you mean you? How can I say? All right, yours is popping in and out. Okay, okay, I'm with you. So we're going to go over Genesis 19. I would encourage you guys to go read both of them for yourself, so that you're just not taking my word for it. But Genesis 19 is the Sodom and Gomorrah story. Most of you guys know the story. You know that Abraham was chilling. Him and Lot separated. Lot went on to Sodom, went to Sodom and to live. And Abraham was still out there, in the wilderness area, walking around in the land of Canaan. Well, all of this is Canaanite land. Abraham then has some visitors, God and two other dudes. Sometimes they say it was three angels, but most scholars believe that they were saying that it was Yahweh and two other dudes. I cannot get this hat straight tonight. I'm gonna take it off in a minute. But anyway, we got that. So Yahweh and a couple other dudes in. So they come, they eat. He brings them into their tent. He washes their feet. He gives them some food. And then later on, they tell him that, hey, we're going to go destroy Sodom and Gomorrah because these people are evil. Never tell you the evil that the people are doing. Just say that these people are evil and we're going to go and destroy this town. Now, I always found it interesting that Abraham knew that Lot was in the city of Sodom, but he never said anything. Even though previously it talks about how Lot got captured by the people of Sodom, but then Lot moves back to the city with these people. And I guess he moves back to the city of Sodom after Abraham kicked Sodom's butt. And then it had to get on my nerve. I guess it just looks crooked to me in the mirror in this thing. But he kicks their butt in, and Sodom, Lot moves back to Sodom. That has always been stupid to me. You're Lot. You get captured by the people of Sodom. You had all these sheep. You had all these people. You had employees. You was doing the damn thing. You and Abraham had so many that you didn't even know. Actually, that's a whole nother video I'm gonna do tomorrow. You didn't even, you was doing great. You moved away to Sodom. You got captured. You lost all your stuff. Now you've moved into the city of Sodom, so you don't have all your cattle and everything that you had with Abraham that you had to split. You don't have all your people anymore. Right? So you went from a wealthy farmer to an average town person. And you decide to move to the city where the people who conquered you and took all your stuff. That part of the Lot story has never made sense. So he moves in, he's in Sodom. Now, Abraham is being told by these, now there's only two angels. God goes back up into the heavens. The two angels who were dispatched to go and destroy Lot, they meet Abraham on a ridge overlooking the city, and they having this conversation. You ever wonder why Abraham didn't say anything to the angels about, hey, my nephew Lot down there? Like nothing. He says nothing about this. Instead, he goes into this bargaining thing. What if there are 50 good people down there? Well, what if it's 20? Well, what if it's 10? If it's 10 good people down there, would you not destroy the city? And it was like, oh, if it's 50, we won't. If it's 20, we won't. If it's 10, we won't. But ultimately, they decided that there's no good people down there. Not enough. So Lot he wasn't a good enough person. If you think about it, you got Lot, his wife, his 3 daughters, and their fiance. That should be 8 people. That's 8 people right there. They couldn't find 2 more people. There wasn't 2 babies, 2 old people. Hell, there wasn't 10 old people, 10 babies that were good people. No. So these 2 angels that they tell Abraham's like, oh, well, Sodom about to get destroyed. Now, a Christian would probably say that, Abraham probably didn't know that Lot went back to the city. Be a bullshit excuse, but I'll let you have that one. So these 2 angels, they go down into the city and they're like, well, it's nighttime. Guess we're gonna sleep out here in the courtyard. You know. Now I find it interesting. Why do two angels need to go out in the courtyard and go sleep? Why do they need to stay overnight? Why do they even need to go into the city? If the deal had already been struck, that there's not enough good people in the city, what's the point of the two angels going into the city of Sodom? Can you help me out with that? Is there any reason? I mean, if we was going to use artillery to destroy a city, like I live in San Antonio. If we was going to use, if some people say, well, we're going to destroy San Antonio, you don't need to send people into the city. You just drop bombs. I mean, you rain fire from the sky. Why did they need to go into the city if there were not enough good people in the city in the first place? What's the purpose? Now, spying. What are they spying for? Unless you're stealing this story from the Sumerian story, where Enlil was sent spies in to view the city in order to launch his rockets in it because he was fighting a war against Marduk, sure. But these are angels. Listen, there's no need for spying. You're angels. The sad part is that the wicked story of the children and the animals will be taken out, and like you said, they never specified what the sin was. Right, they never specified what the sin was. Of course, this story is used. I'll get to that part in a minute. So they sitting up here. To give you an example, when we went to Desert Storm, we didn't need to send spies into Iraq to rain bombs over Baghdad. We didn't. We just bombed the shit out of it. Didn't need to send anybody in. These supposed to be angels to test their faith in God. Are you serious? You know why that doesn't fit, John? One, the angels didn't go in there and proselytize to no one. Two, the angels didn't go in there and warn anyone. Three, they had no intentions of warning anyone. They didn't go in there and approach Lot's door and say, hey, Lot. They just went to the center of town, the courtyard. They were going to spend the night in the courtyard. There was nothing that indicated that they were testing anybody. So, no, this was not a test to see if they would. Wasn't them trying to test to see if they had faith in God. I don't know what pastor or whomever taught you that one, but that's one of them. I don't know that the pastor should have said. Why did two angels have to spend the night? I don't know. Why did two angels have to go into the city? I don't know. That's what whoever taught you that should have said that. Because there's no justification for it. What's up, Roxanne? So they go into the city. Let's continue with the story. They go into the city. They about to spend the night in the courtyard. Lot roll up on him and he's like, hey, I've been living, look, y'all trying to sleep in the courtyard, that ain't gonna work. Because heaven forbid you roll over in the middle of the night and you expose your buttocks, and then somebody gonna ramrod you. So why don't y'all come stay at my house, right? Come stay at my house. What's up, Gypsy? So he invites him to his house. Now at this point, this is where the beginnings of the ideas for people to say that Sodom was a city where they just wanted to, it was a homosexual city. That's not the case. The reason why Lot was telling them, y'all need to come to my house, because in those days, and it lasted for a very long time, this tradition kind of sort of still goes on, but in the time frame for thousands of years, the tradition was in most cities around the world, most cultures rather, when a stranger comes to the town, they have to go check in with the officials of that town, go check in with whoever was running and ruling that town. And then they told you it was okay for you to be there, or they collected taxes or whatever was needed. We can see this in the Bible and in many other stories um, throughout the. Oh, sorry, John, I misunderstood. See, this is why text does not have context to it, tonality. There's nobody taught me just pulling at straws. My now I read that question a little bit differently. So thank you. My apologies if you found what I said insulting. All right. So a lot the people in Sodom are perverts. See, that is the thought process that many people have. This is how they started calling the act of taking a man from the backside sodomites, or saying that that's sodomy, right? If you came into a city, you are supposed to go and greet the rulers of that city. If they employ a tax on you or whatever, so be it. But you're supposed to go and show respect to the rulers of that city. If you don't show respect, then you have disrespected them. And so their way of disrespecting you for disrespecting them is to butt break you. That's the yes. So it wasn't done to because they were looking for joy out of it. It was something that was done because you disrespected me. This was something that was common in a lot of military forces throughout the world for a very long time. If somebody was just constantly disrespecting you, butt broke. This was common in slavery. We know it happened in American slavery, but it also happened in every other form of slavery that has ever been. That you butt break uh, one of the strongest men in order to subjugate the people. You conquer a land and you butt break the king or the generals of that land. So you continue to do so. That wasn't something different. This is why in the New Testament it says that they will meet Jesus up in the sky and escort him back down, because you went out and met with them. Generally, you met them. If it's an important person coming, they will send an emissary ahead of them and let them know, hey, such and such is going to be here in like 2 days. And then that way they can prepare. And then the leadership would usually meet somebody of a superior or an equal. They will meet them outside the city and embrace them and walk them back into the city so that everybody know that it's cool. Yeah, like don't attack them, don't think anything crazy, but it's also signs of respect. So those are the two ways. You either go out and meet them, or if they're sub to you, if not sub to you, if they're the if you so like in the Roman military, if a legatus was coming into a city and that city just had like a provincial governor, they would go out and meet the legatus, escort him back, or some business people or would go out and meet them and bring them back. Now, if it was someone of lower rank, the higher rank wouldn't go out and meet the legatus. They would then come in and they would immediately first go to whoever that higher ranking person's house is, or their position of authority, wherever that's at. So the angels didn't do that. They just walked in the city like they got some walk around money. And they was gonna stay overnight. Lot was like, don't, if you roll over, exposing yourself, they might jump you because y'all didn't come in respectfully to the city. So Lot takes them to his house. And they find out about this. These strangers came into their home, came into their city, did not show respect. So the men of the city gathered around Lot's house, old and young, and they decided to knock on the door, and they was beating on the door, and they was telling Lot, hey, we want those two strangers because they came into the city so that we can get to know them. And to know them is to take their booty. The Bible says and many pastors try to change this to make it seem like they just wanted to have some angelic sex. That wasn't the case. It was just because they came into the city. They didn't know that these were angels. So when they did this, when they was beating on, they're beating on the door. And Lot, in all his goodness of wisdom that deserved to be saved by Abraham and protection from this God, And one of the reasons why women should recognize this Bible does not respect women. Lot says, hey, look, I got two virgin daughters. Y'all can rape them. And but leave these two men alone. Don't have sex with these two men. Don't disrespect these two men. Don't do this evil thing. Now I want you to think about it. He tells them not to do this evil thing, but offers them to rape his daughters. That's not considered evil. The sacrificial SAing of his daughters is not evil, but if they were to take these men, that's evil. But the men persist, and the men are like, nah, we don't want no young virgins, because why? In this story, which further shows they were not interested in his daughters because they were interested in the disrespect that these men had shown them, right? Was this a story where they told them to bring the man out so that they can have sex? This is the Lot story, so it's the two angels, or they think it's two men, the two men, so that they can have sex with them. We're gonna get to the other one. How? Where was I? Oh yeah. But I want you to contemplate that for a second. They didn't want to take the women, they wanted to take the men because it was all about the respect and disrespect that they showed. Uh, and Isaac is right. That is one of the reasons why we know this story is not about that Solomon and this. That's how we know these men were not homosexuals, and that Solomon and Gomorrah was not destroyed because of homosexuality. But of course, they are still utilizing this to express this thought. What's more evil is offering your own flesh and blood to be brutalized. No woman should ever accept a belief system that implies that you have no value. Exactly. Two strange men come to town, but I'm gonna offer my daughters. Because at the time frame, not even Lot, he didn't know that these were angelic beings. These are just two strange men. So Lot offers the daughters. The men don't want them. They want the men. And then the angels tell Lot what the true deal is. Look, we angels, we come to destroy this town. You, your wife, your daughters, and your son-in-laws, y'all need to get out of town. Leave and don't look back. You need to get as far as, and they told him the city to go to. And then Lot, just like his uncle, starts bartering. Well, I'm old, can't quite make it that far, but what if I made it to this other place that's a little bit closer? And somehow the angels miraculously say, sure, as long as you make it to this little place that's a little bit closer, you'll be all right. Now, maybe they chose a different type of bomb to drop. You know what I mean? Maybe a different bomb. Because, like, if I'm going to drop, if I know if I throw a grenade, a high explosive grenade, 5 feet of you dead, 10 feet you injured. But if I throw a shrapnel grenade, 5 feet, you're pretty much dead. 10 feet, you're gravely injured. 15 feet, you'll probably survive. So maybe they decide they're going to throw a different kind of bomb in. You know what I mean? And they told him that he can just go a short distance. So he barters him. So then the angels blind the men. Lot and his family leave. They running away. And then the angels decided they're going to destroy the city. So all those men are blind, and then the whole city is destroyed. Sodom and Gomorrah is destroyed. And then some wind from the city flows and destroys 7 other cities. While Lot and his wife and daughters are running away, his wife looks back and she's turned to a pillar of salt. We know that that is made up, and we know that the statue that they claim is Lot's wife is um, a stone, just stone that was it's a natural forming stone. And then, if that wasn't bad enough, if that wasn't bad enough, what'd you say? It makes sense when you look at the story this way, especially when you study people all the time. Exactly. If that wasn't bad enough, if the story just ended right there, we be that'd be enough. But Lot and his daughters, they get up to this cave and they're safe. The city is destroyed, plus seven other, Sodom and Gomorrah destroyed, seven other cities are destroyed. Now there is evidence of seven cities south going down through Mesopotamia, ancient ruins that appear to have just the people vanished for no reason. They abandoned the city as if something was running through it and they just dropped everything and left. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't demonstrate any preparation for leaving. So these seven cities, it is thought by, it is theorized that based on the writings of the Enuma Elish and the Bible, that it was like a nuclear bomb or some type of nuclear detonation that destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah in the battle between Enlil and Marduk, and the radiation cloud destroyed the other seven cities. There is speculation about that, and it literally has more archaeological evidence than the Bible. One of the two angels weren't Yahweh. Yahweh was with Abraham when the three of them were together. Yahweh was one of them. How did Lot know his wife would turn to salt without looking back? Yeah. Have you ever seen the movie Holy Moses? Now, if you can pull that one, Dwayne, I know you're a Gen Xer. How many of y'all seen the movie Holy Moses? Holy Moses. The movie Holy Moses. Ooh, if my wife hasn't seen this one, she's gonna have to get a dose of this one too. Matter of fact, I know she's never seen it. It's a 1980s movie. I know that she's never seen this one. Please tell me I'm not the only person who's seen the movie Holy Moses. Okay, Dwayne, there we go, there we go, there we go. So Jesus the prophet, and he said, "Don't jump the gun, Michelle. Don't jump the gun." It's hard to believe that blast would turn people into salt, not ashes. Exactly. Gypsy, you haven't seen it? It's a 1980s spoof movie. It's a spoof movie on Moses where I believe, who is it? Is it Dustin Hoffman? No, it's not Dustin. Who was the actor? Oh man, Dudley Moore. Dudley Moore. Richard Pryor. He plays Pharaoh. Moses Snake. Hey, and I forgot the priest names. Man, Snake, and he loved that snake. Okay, I'm challenging y'all to go and watch Holy Moses. Y'all gotta watch Holy Moses. You want? It's stupid. It's slapstick. It's history of the world type stuff. But in that movie, uh, Dudley Moore, when his wife turns into salt, he walks backwards until he gets to her. So I went through all of that just to explain that, just to say that he walks backwards just to get to her. Uh, but yes, Holy Moses, and and I will be forcing my wife to watch that movie here real soon. So if it was some type of blast, she would have died. She would have been turned into salt. But if she was running with them, it wouldn't have been the turning back that would have killed her. It would have been the shock wave or the fire cloud or whatever, and they all would have died. Wilford said, if it's Richard Pryor, I have to see it. Yeah, he plays Pharaoh. Richard Pryor is funny in that movie. So, oh yeah, John Ritter is funny in that movie too. John, because I think he's the alcoholic angel in that movie. So anyway, uh, so she turns in the pillar of salt. They go to the cave. Evidently, if this mountain is supposed to be her, then he's Lot just left his wife sitting there as a pillar of salt. Never went back to check. But they go into this cave. Lot's daughters say that, they believe that every man on earth is now dead. They say that all the men of earth are dead. And they use the term Eretz. Eretz can mean land. So they thought all the localized area had been destroyed. Now, if they were believing how people translate the word Eretz in this Noah story, that meant the entire world, then they believe the entire world had been destroyed. And they say that they got to repopulate the earth. So the oldest girl gets Lot drunk. Lot gets drunk. She gets pregnant because, that's how it works in the Bible. You have sex one time and you get pregnant. She gets pregnant and she then tells her sister, it is your turn. So the next night, Lot gets drunk. They get Lot drunk. Now, the first time you're sitting there, you and your daughters, you're in mourning, you lost your wife, you lost your town, and you got to think about Lot's mentality. He left the city of Ur and followed Abraham. Yeah, they got big. They had a bunch of money. They had all these sheep and cattle and all this kind of stuff. They was living life large. So large that they had to separate because they were so large. But then he lose all his shit when the people of Sodom captured him. And now he's living in Sodom. He just got a little house. And now he not lost his wife. So he not lost all his money. He not lost his wife. He ain't got no city to live in. I can understand him being in mourning. And he's sad. Him sad. So him getting drunk the first night. His daughter's pouring him some libations. Okay, he got drunk. Now, I ain't never been ever. There is no level of drunkenness that I could ever get that my daughter looked good to me. No, sir. But he has sex with his oldest daughter. Or she essays him. She gets pregnant. Now, the second night, your daughter start pouring again. I think Lot just been waiting on an opportunity to get his daughter's pum pum. And this was his excuse to get his daughter's pum pum. And he gets the second daughter pregnant. Now these two daughters, they wind up birthing Moab and Ammon. And according to the Bible people, these becomes the Moabite people and the Ammonite people. They are Canaanites, but they are Moabite and Ammonite people. Jesus, out of the Moabites, there is Ruth. Out of Ruth, first there's Perez. No, I think it's Perez. No, not out of this line. I don't know if it's out of this line or not. But I know that out of the Moabites, there's Ruth. And then Ruth gets with Boaz. They have Obadiah. Obadiah has Jesse. Jesse has David. David has Solomon. And supposedly, this goes up to the line of Joseph. So, Jesus, if he supposed to came from this line of Joseph, yeah. That's about right. If you want to believe that the genetics of Joseph somehow has anything to do with the birth of this Jesus character, he's incestuous. He's born out of it. His lineage has incest all up in it. Now, even if you were to believe that, but the problem with the Mary, her bloodline goes through down to Aaron. It doesn't go through the line of David. She's a Levite. Her family line is Levite, so it goes through Aaron. Right? But they produced the Moabites. This is why, like later on in the Bible, it says it tells in Exodus the Moabites are your cousins because of this. And that's the other part. Now, did they make it to the city of Zoar? Is that where was that the shortcut place? What city did Lot and his daughters get to? Yep. They had went to Zoar, and then they moved into the caves, and he took his daughter's booty. Now, that's a pretty disgusting story. King Jehoiakim was listed as an ancestor of Jesus, but he was cursed not to have descendants. That's a thing that I'm working on a video about that. So don't talk about that. Reasonable, are you? I'm working on a video about that. Texas Goddess, how you doing? Oh. Now that story is a pretty bad story. If you was rating that story on 1 to 10, 10 being it's a horrible ass story that should not be taught to children, that shouldn't be a part of any religious book, what would you rate it? 1 to 10. What would you rate that story? 10 being the worst. 1 being, oh, this story is perfectly fine. How can you be descendants of someone who historically didn't exist? Exactly. This is why when these people try to tell me that the Bible was written allegorical and metaphorical, no, these people put their bloodlines, they base their bloodlines on this book. Their tribal is based on this book. They meant this shit literally. But out of a 1 to 10, a 2, Gypsy, you believe that this story should be taught to children? Because 10 is the worst. Like not 0 is it's a great story, amazing. 10 is the worst. Like this should not be taught in school. Kids shouldn't learn this lesson in Bible study. It shouldn't be in the Bible. This doesn't demonstrate. 10 is the worst. Okay, well, you say you meant 10, but you put 2. I just messing with you. If the Holy Spirit only came upon her, how did she get pregnant? Cause exactly, she got pregnant by a spirit. Now you know the Immaculate Conception is not actually talking about Jesus. That's talking about Mary's conception. That she was born without sin, which is a Catholic doctrine. Right. Without referencing the Bible, you can't prove the existence of 99% of the people in this book. So I think we can all agree that this story is like at a level of 10 in being horrific. Shouldn't be taught to children. Right. I think we can all agree on that. So I want you to keep that in your mind. Keep that in your mind. And like I said, just like with the eating from the tree of life, how Eve added some changes to the what would happen if you eat from this tree? Well, this story in Genesis, which was probably written around the 800 to 700s BCE, well, it must have been impactful and read a lot by the people. Because when we get to Judges 19, which it happened to be chapter 19 the same way, we get another story. But just like any story that's being retold, we got to up the game, right? So if you haven't read Judges 19, as this one comedian said, well, hold on to your butts. This is one of the worst stories in the Bible. And it really goes from Judges 19, 20, and 21. This is one of the absolute worst stories in the Bible. The killing and genociding of babies is the only thing that's worse. But this is right there as far as a long story that's told. This is the worst. So in Judges 19, it starts out by talking about a man. I forgot his name. Judges 19 RSV. I won't be able to say his name. So it talks about this Levite. It doesn't give his name right. It just says a certain Levite. So this certain Levite was journeying through the hillside country of Ephraim until he got to Bethlehem in Judah. And while they were on their journey, his concubine, not his wife, his concubine, gets angry with him. They have an argument and get into a dispute. And then the concubine leaves and she returns to the house of her father. This man then takes the journey and goes to the father's house. Upon getting to the father's house, he reconciled things with the father. And the father is like, okay, I know you're going to take my daughter back, but stay overnight, rest a while. He agrees. Then the next day he feeds him and gives him a festival and they party, and then it gets too late. He's like, it's too late to travel. Stay a while. And this goes on for a third day. Stay a while. Party. Obviously, this man is trying to prevent his concubine daughter from having to go back with this man. Maybe he feared for her life. Kind of like when you have a woman that's being abused and she runs to her father's house and the father is not trying to let this daughter go back to the abuser. So after the fourth night, on the fourth day, the man is like, I don't care how many feasts you throw, it doesn't matter how much you give me to drink, we leave. So he takes the concubine based on their law, their customs, their way of life. She had to go. The daughter had to go. Correct me if I'm wrong, I was told his G-mom bore. Oh, yes. Mary was supposedly born perfect. So this man, he doesn't want his daughter to go, but then he leaves anyway. He leaves late, and then as he's traveling by, now mind you, this is a Levite. Levites are the priesthood, the caretakers. These are priests. So this is the pastor. This is one of the pastors. They journeying. They're on their way to Jerusalem, but they don't quite get there. And they're like, oh, we got to turn in for the night. They skip a few cities because they're like, we don't want to stay in them cities. Them some Canaanite cities, we don't want to stay there. So they go into this town. They do not go and greet the rulers of that town or the men of importance of that town. And instead, they stand around in the courtyard because no one would take them in. And in this case, it was played as no one would take them in. But then here comes this old man. This old man sees them and said, hey, Why don't y'all just come to my house? I got some hay, fresh hay for your animals, for your donkey, and y'all can rest and replenish because you don't want to stay outside. They like, all right. They go to the man's house. Well, the men of that city find out about this stranger who came to their town, and they want to buck break him because he didn't pay the respects. But the old man comes to the door and he says, look, 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 look. I got a virgin daughter and he got a concubine. Y'all can have them. The men of the city, instead, what they say, they didn't do like the men in the city of Lot in Sodom and say, no, no, we want the man. They say, you know what? You can keep your virgin daughter. That concubine will take her. So they throw the concubine out there. Now, in this case, he says, oh, you men, don't do this evil thing to this man, but take his concubine and my virgin daughter. Because if you do what you will with the daughter, the virgin daughter and the concubine, that's not the evil thing. The evil thing is if you were to buck break this man. You see, ladies, how this Bible doesn't have any value for y'all. So, but this time the men agree, but they don't take the virgin daughter. See, they don't take the virgin daughter of the man of the town by which they already know, because the virgin daughter nor that man has disrespected them. But who they do accept is the concubine. But what gave them the right to violate them in a sexual manner because of that message? I get it. I get from this is a little strange. It was just a cultural thing, and it's been a cultural thing that lived into the 1900s, where if a man was disrespectful towards you and you butt broke him, that was a customary thing for societies all over the world up until I think the last instance of it I've ever heard of was in the 1900s, early 1900s at that. Um, this Things like that happened during World War One and World War Two. So yeah, and oftentimes, but the last thing that I heard about that was when I went to POW training, and how those sorts of that was some of the ways that they would that they would do to you in POW training. The woman pilot who was captured during the Gulf War, she was severely SA'd. But quiet as it's kept, in POW wartime situation, that type of thing still happens. So they do take the concubine, and all night the men of the city essay this woman to the degree that they let her go until the morning. Everyone is satisfied, I'm guessing. And in the morning they let her go. She stumbles back to the house. How she found her way back to this house is amazing. And she collapsed with her hand on the step of this house. And in the morning, after a good night rest, this Levite opens the door and sees the woman is lying there with one hand on the stoop, and he tells her to get up. Now, I want you to think about it. He is so, whatever pissed off conversation that they had that she ran away from him, this his concubine, and so you got to think about the emotional detachment that he had to have with her, that when she's been SA'd all night to the point where she dies by morning, you got to think about how much damage was going on, that when she dies that morning, that his first words to her is get up. Not you saved me, thank you, or I can't believe this, this is so terrible, whatever. Get up. Get your ass up. Right? That I have met some cruel people in my life. I don't think I've ever met somebody that cruel. I may have, just didn't experience it or see it, but yeah. So anyway, uh, he tells her to get up. She doesn't. She doesn't answer. So he throws her body over the donkey, and they go on, and he leaves and go to Jebus, Jerusalem. When he gets home, and he got his dead concubine, and he gets home to his wife, he then cuts the limbs off of his concubine and cuts them up into 12 pieces. And he sends these 12 pieces to the heads of the tribes who had received their inheritances from Joshua, the 12 tribes of Israel. And then the leaders of those tribes gather together. And he tells them what happened. The men of Gibeath, who were Benjamites, these were Benjamites. So these were Israelites who did this, by the way. These men of Gibeath were Israelites. I mean, they were they were Israelites because they was of the tribe of Benjamin. They gather the heads together, and at first the heads are like, "Nah, we ain't finna do nothing about this." But then they talk about it, pray about it, sacrifice about it, and then they just say, "Okay, you know what? We're gonna go and we're gonna kill these people." And they raise an army, I believe, of like 40,000 people. And then they go and they are headed to Gibeath. They're gonna kill these people. Well, the men of Gibeath are like 2,000 or 2,500. There's some number like 2 or 3,000 people. Now check this out. The God is supposed to be. This is an evil that has been done, right? That these people would rape this concubine to this level that she dies, and this man not cut her body up and sent them around in little care packages. And when they first go out to battle against the men of Gibeath, they get their ass whooped. They get their ass whooped. So then the men are like, "Oh shit, what happened?" Then it's like, "Oh, we didn't do our practice towards God right," and so God is saying, "Go back again." And then they go back and they actually win, and they kill all these. They kill all but 600 of the men of Gibeath. Because at first they wanted to kill just the men who had committed the rape, but then the men of Gibeath was like, "We ain't giving up the people who did this," and so they were like, "Well, we just gonna kill all y'all." But they kill and 600 survive, right? Oh, story ain't over. Because now you got 600 of them left, and similar to the Lot story, where the two daughters thought that they would die out, his line would die out. Now the Israelites who just killed all these people in this town of Gibeah are now saying, "Oh, there's 600 left, and we can't let their line die out." Exactly. Yes, Stephanie, it's very disturbing. That's why I put the parental advisory up. So now, so I want you to think about this. And we do this even in today's world. We America and Britain and all that kind of stuff, and the Allies after defeating Germany, then they go in to rebuild Germany. After dropping bombs in Japan, then you go in and you rebuild Japan, right? Usually you go in and you rebuild. We've seen that mentality in our more modern day time frame. In the past, not so much. You conquer some people, you control those people, you enslave those people. You don't go back in and build them up to make them your allies. So they then say we can't let their line die out. So then they go attack some other people. I forgot who they went and attacked. But they go and they attack some other people. Let me see if I can find it real quick who they attacked. 20 is about them fighting the men of Gibeath, and the men of Gibeath kicking their ass, and then they finally kick. And 600 men are left. And they killed all the, they went to the towns, killed all the people. Now, because of what they did, when the other tribes were in Mizpah, they said that they were not going to give any of their daughters in marriage to these men of the breath, right? To marry to a Benjamin. So, but they realized that they're now saying, well, we can't let them all die out. And so what these assholes do, let me see if I can find it real quick. And behold, no one had come to the camp of Jabesh Gilead to the assembly. Oh, so since the people from Jabesh Gilead had not come to the assembly, no representative from that specific little group, they decided that they were going to go and kill the inhabitants of Jabesh Gilead. And they went and killed them, and they killed every man and every woman that has lain with a man. They destroyed all of them. And this is what they were commanded to do. And they found 400 young virgins who have not known a man. And they brought them to the camp in Shiloh where so that they can give them to the men of to these Benjamites, to the men of Benjamin. Right? So I want you to think about that. They went to a city, and the only thing this city hadn't done is send somebody to go help fight against these Benjamites. Now that they don't want the Benjamites to die, they go to this other Israelites, these other towns, and say, we're going to kill all the men, all the women who's known a man. So that means all the baby boys are also being murdered. All the old men are being murdered. And all the women who have had sex are also being murdered. And they then take 400 virgins, so 12-year-olds, 11-year-olds, 10-year-olds, 8-year-olds, 5-year-olds, 2-year-olds, and they give them to these Benjamites, these men of the breath, and they take them as wives. But the numbers don't match. There's 200 left over. So then they tell the Benjamites who did not get a wife, and because they couldn't give them wives of their daughters, they tell them about a festival, a yearly feast for the Lord that's going to be going on in Shiloh, right? And that for them to go and hide. And when the daughters of Shiloh, which is of Canaanites, when they are out dancing, doing the virgin dance out in the woods, to go snatch them up and snatch up 200 wives. And they went and snatched them up. And they told the men of Shiloh, don't worry, they ain't had no wives, so, you know, we don't worry, they not already had sex with them. And so don't worry about it. Now it does end with, in those days there was no king in Israel. Every man did what was right in his own eyes. So they didn't have a king. So this is when they had the judges. Now I know the Lot story is terrible, but this story is even worse. Yeah, you got to think when they're killing some of these women were pregnant, and they're killing pregnant women. Now, to me, there's no way to justify this book. This is why you haven't heard this preached in a church. I doubt very seriously if you ever heard Judges 19, 20, and 21 preached in a church. And that's the end of Judges. Right after that, it goes into the book of Ruth. Go to the Ruth and Boaz story, which is another fucked up story. But you can see how elements of this story come from the story of Genesis 19. There are too many pieces of it that are too similar. And this is why most linguistic scholars, Bible scholars who are not apologists, they all recognize that the writers of Judges 19 was really just copying Genesis 19, but add some twists and turns to the story. Except they do preach it to be a precursor to why Jesus was necessary. The sad part about it is that this story actually doesn't have anything to do with, but I see what you're saying about Jesus being necessary. But there is no reason for this story other than the Lot story must have been some good ass fan fiction, and somebody said, "Hey, I know that you wrote, these fables and stuff, but my name is Walt Disney, and I'm gonna write my own version of these stories." Well, in this case, I know you wrote these stories, but my name is Stephen King, and I'm gonna write my version of these stories. Because both stories have a man that men that come to a city, two people that come to a city. Both stories, the two people don't go and greet the rulers of the city or the people in charge of the city like they're supposed to. So they disrespect the people of the city. Both stories have some old dude who comes out and say, "Hey, come stay at my house," because the town people may do something to you. Both stories are offered their virgin daughter, and in this instance, a concubine and a virgin. So one is two virgin daughters, the other is a virgin daughter and a concubine, offered women in place of the man being essayed. One story says that the angels blinded them and nobody got essayed. While the other story, Stephen King, the story, and the concubine gets essayed until she dies. The other story, the city is destroyed. In both stories, the city is destroyed. In both stories, there is a situation where they think that a line, a birth line, a bloodline is going to die out. And in both of those stories, people get essayed. Lot gets essayed, or Lot is just allows himself, wink, wink, to get essayed. And the other one, they just go and, hey, let's just kill some other people in Shiloh. Let's just take some women, these Canaanite women from Shiloh, and force them to be, with a little touch of genocide. There's no reason or rhyme to these stories, but you can see how they one is just stacking itself on the other. And there's absolutely no way a Christian or Bible believer could ever justify either of these two stories. Eventually they have to go with, well, God works in mysterious ways. God was just showing how we wasn't supposed to be, because they were looking for judges and kings when they should have just been looking for God. That's usually what you hear when anybody preaches anything out of the book of Judges. When man relies on man, that's when they do the wrong thing. So, y'all got any questions or statements about this foolishness of these stories? But can you see how it is evident that the Judge's story is the Lot story redone? Right, and let me go to that. Let me go to that real quick. Genesis 19 RSV. I didn't think about. Isaac is bringing up a good point. Give me a second. And destroy Sodom and Gomorrah. Now, when Lot went out to Zoar and dwelt in the hills with his two daughters, for he was afraid to dwell in Zoar, so he dwelt in the caves with his two daughters. And the firstborn said to the other, "Our father is old. There is not a man on earth to come to us after this manner of all the earth. After this manner of all the earth, come, let us make father drunk." I gotta go a little bit forward for when he's negotiating with how far he needs to go. Behold, yonder city is near enough to flee. The morning daughter, the angels are urged Lot and arise, take your wife and your two daughters who are with you here, and at least you be consumed in punishment. But the lingering man seized up his wife and the two daughters, and behold, the Lord of mercy in him and brought them forth out and set them outside the city. And when they had fought from them, and forth they said, flee for your life, do not look back anywhere in the valley, flee to the hills, lest you be consumed. And Lot said to them, "Oh no, my lords, oh, we have your served favorite sight, and shown great kindness in my life. Get not into the hills of disaster, overtake me, and I die. Behold, yonder city is near enough to flee to, it, and it is a little one. Let me escape there. It is not. Is it not a little one?" And saying, yeah. So they knew that there were some people in Zoar. Make haste, escape, and they're not. They knew that there were at least some people in the Zoar. They just chose to live in the hills, but they knew that there were some people in the Zoar. So them girls just want to have sex with their daddy because they done lost their fiance, and daddy done lost his wife. So it's a bunch of bullshit. This is the La Angelina. These are hand rolled cigars by my wife. Contact me at masteringyou, the number 10 at gmail.com, and you can order some of her cigars. You know, I haven't smoked the Olmec. The next time I go to a cigar lounge, I'm gonna get an Olmec. But I gotta make sure they have them. I know who does have them. Next time I go to Cigar International, I'm gonna get an Olmec. I have never smoked that one. So this story, these are just horrible stories. So out of okay, for all of y'all who said that the Lot story is a 10 on, out of the worst, how horrible is this story? 1 out of 10, 10 being the worst. Y'all saying that the Lot story was the worst. Where do you place the Judge's story, which has been Stephen King? Um, it just it just says that they just made their father drunk with wine. It doesn't say where they got the wine from, um, or anything like that. Let me see something real quick. While y'all deciding where does it fall on the scale? So it said he lingered. They seized him by the hand. He took them outside of the city. It doesn't say whether or not they had any belongings with them, but he said that he grabbed them. This angel of the Lord grabbed them by the hand and took them to the outside of the city walls. So it doesn't say that they had any animals with them or that they had bags or whatever. So I don't know where these girls magically got this wine from, but they magically got some wine from somewhere. Maybe in the city of Zoar, they got some wine. Are you new to cigars? Where you at, Roxanne? Roxanne? What city are you in? Welcome, Boat, brother of the leaf. But yes, it takes a tremendous amount of mental gymnastics to believe in these stories, and eventually caused me. It eventually caused me to leave Christianity. Yes, the more and more I read these stories and understood these stories, I had to walk away from this religion. These two stories were very helpful in me walking away from this religion. Right. They had no money. They believed they were the only people left. But they say that they believed that they were the only people left, but they knew that there were people in the city of Zoar, that there was a small city in Zoar, and they knew that. Oh, you're in Philly? I don't know. Okay. I don't know of any good lounges in Philly. That's why I was asking. To see if he was, I don't know of anybody in Philly who, you know, smokes. But you can join my channel, Smoking Phoenix Cigars. I do cigar reviews on that channel. I haven't done one in a while, but I do cigar reviews on my Smoking Phoenix channel. Smoking Phoenix Cigars. I didn't see anybody. Y'all didn't want to give this story a point system. Where do you rank this story in comparison to the Lot story? And do you think that they basically copied the Lot story and added their own spins to it? You know, they Stephen King this thing. You give it a 10. Dwayne gives it a 10. I rate all the stories 100 if possible. Yeah, this one might have to get a little extra. It might have to get a little extra because this story it just goes overboard. You know, it certainly does go overboard. Like the things that they're adding into this one. Okay, Aaron McKee's Smoke Shop. Well, if I'm ever in Philly, I'll let you know. Only a believer in the Bible would downplay this story. Only a believer in the Bible would downplay this story. Because there's no way you would not only do you have to go through the mental gymnastics in order to remain a believer in this story, in this book, after reading this story, you would literally have to just turn on the blinders, become your cognitive dissonance would have to reach an all-time high, you know, in order to believe and to stay in this. Coming to an understanding of this story was one of those things that I was just like, I cannot stay committed to this. It's just one of those things that's just ridiculous. It's a ridiculous thing to believe in, that this story can in any way be of a good God. Yep. Now they say that his ways is higher than our ways, and who are you to question it? You know, and all that sort of thing. Yeah, I know, Dwayne. I had to put that in my phone real quick because I was like, when I go to Philly, I'm gonna have to go check this place out. I'm actually gonna put one of James' comments up here. So what do you think your opinion count? Nobody else opinion don't count. Why do you think you better than somebody else? Do you not nobody else? You're not very small for saying something. What you say? Yeah, I actually understand what you're saying in this one. I don't think that I'm better than anybody else. But what I do recognize is that some things are just right and some things are just wrong. And if you disagree with the idea that these are two horrible stories and that this disrespectful is held to women, and you think otherwise, anything otherwise is just wrong and shows your moral depravity, that you would accept this as holy writings by your Bible, by your God. Well, supposedly, Moses was inspired and told this story by God. It doesn't tell you when he was told it, but he just claimed it. And yes, this is one of the reasons why, like in the Christian religion, committing atrocities is perfectly fine. What we would deem as atrocities today, yeah, they didn't think much of women. Women were nothing but cattle. They were property. So to them, they were like, yeah, it's fine to treat a woman like that because she ain't worth nothing. She protecting the sanctity of a man by going out there and dying, being essayed to death. She protected her master. So that's what a woman should do. And people buy into it. Now they'll separate their own selves out of it because these women know good and damn well that if they were living, if they went back in time and they were able to live during the time frame that this supposedly was happening, there is absolutely no way they would submit themselves to that. There is no way. That's right. Right thinking will let you know when you smell a rat. I agree. No, you got to buy into this lie. You have to buy into it. You have to allow your morality to be swayed by this. You have to be willing, James, uh, to sit there and say, hey, you know what? It was right for God to allow this to happen, for God to endorse this thing to happen. It was right for those Israelites to do what they did to those women. You would have to endorse it and you have to endorse that God, and so you have to buy into it. Most of the time, you've been indoctrinated into it, and so when you find out these things, you then have to make up justifications for why it's right. Deuteronomy 20:10-14. That's this warlord mentality of this God. He has a warlord mentality. Offer peace and they become your slaves. But if they don't want the peace, then you kill them and kill everybody, genocide the shit out of them, but you keep the young girls for your wives. And again, James, I don't think I'm better than people in the sense that I am more deserving of existence in that framework. No. But do I have better morals than Christians? Yes, I do. I have better morals than Christians. My morality would not allow for me to accept the depraved mentality of the Bible. My morality will not let me accept the way that the Bible treats women, the way it treats slavery, the way it treats foreigners. Yeah, I have a higher moral standard than people who believe in this Bible. So I will take that. I am better than them when it comes to that. Oh, I did not mean to click on what you said. The Bible claims that good has conquered evil, but I don't see much good. There's a lot of good in the world. Uh, we just get inundated with the negative so much. And now I will say that I am a overly optimistic person. So when I see a group of people, I'm thinking of optimistic things when I see them. I'm noticing the best things that's going on most of the time than the negative. Yeah, and you're right. The reason why the Bible God sounds like a warlord because storm deities, which were second tier gods, had warlord mentalities. They dealt with destruction and chaos and warfare and killing. And then, but just like Aries. And see, any book, what makes it saying the moral standard of the Bible says, kill those who don't believe as you do, kill those who are different. So where's the morality? Right, there isn't any. And then it'll have these little other comments. Oh, be good to your neighbors because just like when you were slaves, be good to them. Then it tells you to enslave your neighbors and enslave the Canaanites if you can't kill them. But then go to the other farm people and make them your slaves. But then turn the other cheek. It's so contradictory within itself. It contradicts itself so many times. But that's the nature of this book. And see, if God was a good God, he would not tell anybody to do any of these. He wouldn't tell anybody to do any of these things. Yeah. And people accept it because of their fear of this God, their fear of going to hell. This is why they accept this bullshit. That's the only way you can accept it. You are fearful that if you don't accept this, you will end up going to hell. And so I have to be afraid. I have to accept all of this. Otherwise, I might go to hell. And I can't do that. I can't risk going to hell. No. So what do? They make justifications for it. Yeah, the God of the Bible is very much schizophrenic, very schizophrenic, right? This is why if they will, like if you're having a debate about slavery in the Bible, yeah, they will find things. Oh, if you steal another, steal another man, you're gonna go. That's a horrible thing. But then they leave out the fact that they're only talking about Hebrew to Hebrew, and it's not talking about the fact of Leviticus 25:44, 25:45, when it says that you go and you buy your slaves from foreigners. It doesn't talk about when the Benjamites were supposed to the Benjamites were supposed to conquer. No, the Danites were supposed to conquer the Canaanites and kill them, but because they couldn't genocide them, they were supposed to make them into slaves. They'll forget about those parts. So they're hedging their bets while they straddling the fence. Yeah, but they're not even. It's not even a good hedge, right? Because what if the Hindus are right? The Indus religions are right. What if Shinto is right? What if Buddhists are right? What if Ifa is right? What if any other religion is right? If any other religion is right, you screwed. You screwed over. Because now you got to deal with the fact that those religions are the right religions. And you've been believing in the wrong religion. So it's messed up. And you create, and the fact of the matter, there is no heaven and hell other than the one you create for yourself. You can create your own heaven and hell right here, right now. It is all completely up to you. And most people, unfortunately, create hell for their lives. If you really go through and you're honest with how you have lived your life and the things that happened in your life, you will see that the overwhelming majority of negative things that happened in your life were based on decisions you made. Even when you was thinking you was making a good decision, sometimes things just don't go right. It don't turn out well for you. But that's just shit that happens. Sometimes things go that way. And you just have to deal with it. No. How you doing, Patel? How does a person in the North Sentinel Island decide whether they're going to go to heaven or hell? They've never heard of your Jesus, never heard of your Yahweh, your El, never heard of your Jehovah. How does a Sentinel Island person make that decision who's never heard of your Bible and they are going to die today and they've never heard of? How do they make the decision of going to heaven and hell? Inquiring minds would love to know, Patel. I'm doing fantastic. It was only 90 degrees, 92 degrees today, and not 100 like yesterday. So I'm doing fantastic. But for all my Christians who are on here, okay, but Patel, you say they have free will. A person on the North Sentinel Islands have never heard of your Jesus. Do they go to hell or do they go to heaven? Does their free will in the belief in whatever they believe, because nobody knows what the people on North Sentinel Island believe in, where do they go? Heaven or hell? Probably no one religion is going to be complete. That's absolutely correct. Man wrote everything. You are the one that makes your call for you at the end of the day. Exactly. I get it to a degree. My cousin is an Yoruba priestess uh, that was a student of Yosef ben Johanan. Yeah, they get to choose. She's going to she do all her things the right way and practice her version of Ifa. Then she will join with the ancestors. Holding tank Jake. Patel, what in the hell? What does that mean? What is? I don't know what that means. Yeah, and don't visit North Central Island. You're gonna be in the funeral parlor. Exactly. And they say that it's only debt slavery like debt slavery is moral. Yeah, debt slavery is not moral at all. And then your children are slaves. But it makes the slave. But if you are of a foreigner, you are a slave for life. There is no debt slavery. You're just a slave. See, those are the problems of this Bible. It can't possibly cover. And they'll go into, well, God, I'm sure God has a plan for the people who have died and never knew of him, never heard of him. The Bible says that the whole world will hear his preaching. Well, that's a lie. Millions and millions of people have died and never heard of this Jesus. Oh, I was joking about the holding tank. God has a sense of humor in his personality. And I remember something about a pastor was like, "Oh, the people who've never heard, they'll go to some type of." He didn't say limbo or what was the other part? He didn't say limbo, but they will go to another space and time, and they will be ministered to, and they'll have an opportunity. And I was like, "Well, shit, I want that shot." That means I lived my whole life not knowing this God, but then at the end, the God is going to present Himself to me, show Himself to me, so then I'm good. Does that question have to do with generational curses? What question is that? Are you talking about James' question? So what? So what was your ancestor? Was your ancestors slaves? Some of them were. Very few of my ancestors were slaves. Very few. The ones that were all up in Nigeria and Mali and Ghana and beforehand, they weren't slaves, as far as I know. Yep. And we create our own existence. You create your own little universe. That's why I work on my mind every day so that it's strong enough to create whatever I want it to create when I leave this body. But most likely it's just gonna go into oblivion. There will be no more consciousness. But I'm with, is this Maria? Isn't that Maria's like title name, YouTube name? I would be more accepting of that if a religion just taught, if you like how the Zoroastrian religion teaches good thoughts equal good words equal good actions, and that's it. That's the main primary concept. Good thoughts, good words, good deeds. Go to heaven. If that was the way, I would be cool with that. And that's right on time, Isaac. You saw a clip of a video of someone asking an apology. If the goal is to get more people into heaven, why not stop telling people about Jesus so they won't be judged because they didn't know? Right. They don't like that idea because they need you to be able to say that. They need to be able to say that you're so filthy, you're so dirty, you're so filled with sin, you're not good. You're going to hell unless you believe in this Jesus. Because they need their scapegoat of Jesus to be able to enter heaven. Instead of just saying that the way to get to heaven is to do good deeds, to do more good deeds than evil deeds, to speak more good words than evil words, to think more good thoughts than evil thoughts. And if your scale is filled with more good than bad, then you get to go to heaven. But if it's filled with more evil, then you go to hell. There is no God that makes this judgment. There is no God that requires your worship. You just have to be the best person you can possibly be. You get to go to heaven. Yeah, and that's it. And here's the thing: did the guy next to Jesus go to heaven? If so, then what's that saying? A righteous person who doesn't know Jesus goes to hell, but a criminal who all of a sudden accepts Jesus goes to heaven. And that is how the story goes, Randall. The dude was just like, this dude ain't done, he up on the cross with next to Jesus. This dude ain't done nothing wrong. I don't know why y'all punishing him. He shouldn't be up here. You know what, dude? And Jesus on this cross, you know what? I appreciate the support. On this day, you will be in heaven with me and the Father. Which then creates a problem. Because wasn't Jesus supposed to go into Sheol for 3 days? But he said, on this day, you will be with me in heaven and with the Father. To the criminal. Did he just lie to that man? Either he lied to the man who was next to the man, who was sitting next to the man, who was sitting next to the man, next to the goddamn man who said your piccolo player is a pickle. Who said, fuck you, fuck your piccolo player. All right. The criminal didn't repent. The criminal didn't get baptized. He just said, I'm the man hanging next to the man. And I'm saying the man, as the man hanging next to the man, that he don't deserve to be up there. and he get to go to heaven. Uh, that's the bullshit of this religion. But see, that's how they like to think about it. They like to think about the criminal next to him get to go with such an easy little thing that he did at the end, right? But you got to do all this other stuff. Right. And you are absolutely right, man. I don't view the enslavement that happened in recent history to Africans as a curse. It's just something that societies have done for as long as we have the human history we do have. Most cultures have some level of slavery. And the overwhelming majority of people who've ever existed were never slaves. There is more than one paradise, possibly. I think there are trillions. I would think if our consciousness exists, stays intact, there are trillions of paradises because everybody creates their own. But this Jesus paradise, nah, that's a non-existence. I never seen the movie, so I don't know that reference. But he was telling the guy you're going to green pastures while having a spike behind the guy's head. That's messed up. But you got to, oh, you know why he would say that? Because if you were a warrior and you died in battle in the Greek religion, then you went to Elysium, which is supposed to be this Valhalla kind of place. Really, there's only one paradise. You've been there. You've been there. You know somebody been there and came back with evidence and proof of it. The one book in Christianity that talks about somebody going there and coming back to visit was Enoch, and that's not part of your book. And exactly, Jesus talked. They say that Jesus went to Abraham's bosom and took the people out of Abraham's bosom while everybody else went to Abaddon, which is kind of like a purgatory. So an apologist wrote this. I mean, because there are some contradictions. And the thing about it, they wrote it like a fictional novel. It is written just like a fictional novel, like short stories of a fictional novel. I get a kick out of watching the Righteous Gemstones. I had to write that one down. Yeah, and Alexander did think that he was the son of Zeus because that was a common thing. You know, Zeus was coming down having sex with all the mortal women. You know, he was having sex with mortal women, with nymphs, with everything. Zeus was a horny dude. Appreciate that. And you know, this cigar is getting. I'm trying to make it last, but We're down to the last. We only got a few puffs left. Especially since y'all tricked me and got 3 hours out of me yesterday. Yeah, and that what is that, like Galatians 4, that says that these stories are allegories and whatnot. And the only reason I think that, and now Galatians was not actually written by Paul. This is one of the letters that they think are pseudo, um, even though Paul was an agent of Rome. But that's because they know that these stories were myths and legends, just like the Greek stories. But these Gentiles who were starting to accept Christianity, they didn't want to read these ancient stories of the Israelite antiquity and recognize them as truth. So it's allegory. Plus, they didn't want them believing in talking snakes and donkeys and all that. So we got to say that they're allegories. But for the people that Jesus was supposedly a practicing Jew, and everybody before that took these stories as truth. This is what happened. So they believe that these stories are based on historical events that happened. So for the writer who is acting like he is Paul to say that is a contradiction to the thought process of the writers of the Old Testament and the New Testament, because they believe Jesus did all the stuff that he did. Ooh, I almost burnt my lip. So we're done with that cigar. No, but that is not why the Bible is not a mystery. That's the sad part about it, Ellen. It's not a mystery. It's only a mystery because the modern day mind would not be able to accept this God if you actually thought about it in the same way that the writers of the Bible thought about the Bible. Because if you, in modern day, if you accepted the Bible as the people who wrote the Bible thought about it, it will become an unacceptable book to you. It will become as unacceptable as reading the Greek stories, the Roman stories, the Kemetic stories, the Akkadian Sumerian stories, or anybody else's stories. It becomes unacceptable to your modern mind. So then you have to make it a mystery. Then you have to make it an allegory, because otherwise you couldn't accept it. And for those of us who have recognized this, we don't accept it. So we're done with it. I wouldn't say the Bible is Eurocentric. I would say that it's Mediterranean centric because it's based on the Mediterranean thought process. Kemetic, Greek, Mesopotamian, all those elements. But Black people accept it because they were beaten into it, enslaved into it. But if they use their brain and thought through it, there's no way that anybody would still be Christian. Exactly. Christians like to say that's a doctrine that he went and preached to the sinners. That's just a doctrine that somebody made up. The actual book is saying that no, he just went to Abraham's bosom and left. But he also said that he was in heaven that same day. So you got to make up your mind. And this is the saddest part. Most people believe in this book and don't read it. So the book is just a big fairy tale book. But my cigar is gone and we are at the 2 hour mark. And y'all know what that means because we're not doing 3 hours tonight. I got to find out if we're going to be able to sleep in our bedroom because redoing the ceiling in the bedroom tonight, all day today. I don't even know if we can sleep in there. But I appreciate you guys. I think the Judges story is worse than the Lot story, the Genesis story. Both are horrible stories. Uh, there's absolutely no way that I could follow this Bible and believe in this Bible, and I have to believe in those stories and treat them as if some God inspired them. But these people do. So this is why, and I saw a meme today that reminded me of why I do these things. I am not here to awaken the sheep, but to galvanize the lions. And you guys are lions. The sheep that come on to this show, I'm not here to wake you up. This is why I ignore 90% of what the sheep who come on here say, because I'm not here for them. These two stories, this podcast should reinforce your reason, your rationales for leaving this religion. So I thank you guys for being here. We will continue with these types of conversations. Right? Okay. Look at that. So Dwayne has reserved his room. What room is he talking about? Well, what Dwayne is talking about, that in the description of this video, you'll see that we're having a Free Thinkers Conference. We'll meet up October 31st through November 2nd. You can reserve your rooms. You don't have to pay anything up front right now. You can reserve your rooms at the Drury Plaza. It'll be at the Drury Plaza in San Antonio on the Riverwalk. And we will have meetups. Their reservation gives you a free breakfast. It gives you a free supper at 5:30, between 5:30 and 7 o'clock. We will going to have a meetup at Devil's River right now. If I can get this other thing done in enough time, it'll be somewhere else on Friday night. But we're going to have a meetup in Devil's River on Friday night. Saturday, mid to late morning, we're going to meet at the Chinese Tea Garden. That's free. They do have a restaurant up there, but it's free to go there. We would then have another meetup poolside. I'm getting in the water, but poolside at the Drury Plaza as well that evening after supper. And then Sunday, depending upon how many people and what time people are leaving, we will have another meetup like in the lobby or somewhere near before people start leaving. So I hope that you guys are keen on coming to San Antonio to have this meetup. All right, sheep are food for the lion. Exactly. So I look forward to seeing you guys. And yes, if Christians read the Bible, they will become atheists. Exactly. So I look forward to seeing these guys. And yes, we will be having conversations. I would not meet you. I would like to meet you. Make up your mind, damn it. But we will be having conversations. And we would do some planning of how we want to move forward with creating a culture for us to better ourselves and better our communities and things of that nature. So I look forward to that. So I look forward to meeting as many of you guys as possible. Thank you for supporting the channel by being members on Facebook, on YouTube, subscription holders on Facebook, and for those who support the channel this way. Thank you very much. So y'all have a great night, and always remember, you have to free yourself to be yourself, because your greatness is non-negotiable. Good journey, good vibrations, and share all my videos.